Hello everyone and welcome to Fallen Angel Customs. It's been quite some time, hasn't it? I'm really sorry about that. Sadly, the real world caught up with me and didn't leave any time for creativity. But let's not dwell on what was and move on to what is. So, are you ready to get started? I know I am. I decided for the pinafore to keep it relatively simple using a green polo fleece. With the pieces cut out, I gathered the top of the skirt and attached the waistband before attaching the upper part of the pinafore. Hemming the bottom of the skirt along with adding 2 straps and these 2 tiny silver buckles I found hidden away at the bottom of my sewing basket. Finally, I took a piece of elastic and ran it through the tube I created when hemming before sewing up the back centre seam to give it a very puffy look to the skirt section. With the top, I actually dismantled the one that came with the doll alongside adjusting some pattern pieces I already had before cutting everything out of this soft yellow fabric. Starting by using lace to hem the sleeves and to act as the cuffs to the blouse, then moved forward by sewing the collar pieces together and using my straighteners to iron it flat and press the seams apart. With the sleeves laid together, I added them to the armholes, then attached the collar using my straighteners once more to help it lay flat. Finally, sewing up the side seams all the way along to the ends of the sleeves to finish off. One thing I love about doing socks for dolls is the pattern is pretty much always the same, making it nice and simple to just cut it out of the desired fabric, at least as long as it has some stretch. Using some more of the same lace I used on the blouse, I hemmed the tops of the socks and finally sewed them along the centre seam and tested the fit to make sure the lace didn't compromise the joints. Working out the pattern for the Wellington boots took me ages, as originally I wanted them to follow the shape of her foot. However, the green vinyl didn't want to cooperate, so in the end I settled with going for a flat pair as I really wanted to keep the transparency of the material. Using some really pretty washi style tape I had, I used it to act as a highlight and hem to the tops of the wellies before lining up the lower part with the upper part, and carefully used a little bit of hot glue to seal the seam. I say carefully because the vinyl did melt in a scrap piece that I tested on. Using some more of the tape, I closed up the back seam of the boot, including leaving a little extra at the top to make the little tab that you use to sort of help pull your shoes on. For the soles, I layered 2 pieces of vinyl, carefully attached them with some hot glue before using the tape to create the outer edge of the sole, layering more hot glue to fill the sole itself out. With the soles cooled, I tested the fit to make sure they could be slid on and off easily enough. Taking more of the vinyl, I measured and cut out a 20 by 20 cm square. With the square, I created 8 folds, being sure to press firmly to leave the crease mark behind. I realised after I'd done the creases one way that I could have actually done the folds and creases a much better, easier and faster way, which I did go back and do to firmly put the creases in place. Once the vinyl was folded back into a small square, I made some smaller folds, cut off the bottom. Watching it back, it looks like one big awkward piece of origami with vinyl instead of paper. Unfolding the piece of vinyl, I took some wire and a pair of pliers and cut 8 pieces of the same length and and a ninth longer piece, which would become the handle. Using more of the tape that I used on the wellies, I went around the outer edge of the vinyl, overlapping at the corners, and trimming it down once all the pieces had been put in place. I tried a few different ways of attaching the metal spines. In the end, I ended up cutting 8 new, longer pieces, which I could trim down, as once the original pieces had been slightly bent to fit in place, they were no longer long enough. Using more of the tape, I attached each of the metal arms in place, all the way around, trimming off the excess once they were firmly in place. Before, you guessed it, applying more tape, I think I became addicted to just how pretty it was in the end, because it was just my saving grace to assembling the entire umbrella. Once the longer wire was fixed in place, a little poking out the top, I used the glue to affix the spines to the centre. I carefully made my way around, adding a gentle curve to the wire spines to help create a more umbrella-like silhouette. In the end, I actually went back in and removed one of the triangle panels, reducing them down to 7 instead of 8, as I just wasn't happy with how the silhouette was looking. I also curved the end to form the handle and used hot glue to give it more bulk. To finish off, I wrapped the handle with a dark green yarn, which I also used to make her a little froggy companion. After tackling the task that was the umbrella, I decided to keep things simple for the hat. I cut the pieces out from the same materials I used for her blouse and pinafore. I started by attaching the centre pieces to the side pieces for each colour, before placing them right sides facing, sewing all the way around and leaving a small opening at the back of the hat so it could be turned right side out. Once the hat was right side out, I sewed the hole shut with a ladder stitch and used some green thread to create a decorative yet functional stitch all the way around. I say functional because it helped keep the seams pressed apart. To start the face up, I cut an opening in her head, which I also used to help me remove the factory hair, and carefully cut away the plastic that was holding the eye in place so I could pop it out. This is where I discovered that, unlike the Shibajuku dolls, which I've customised in the past, the Eyes for the Rainbow High dolls have a solid black plate which the lashes are attached to. A lot of hard work, I eventually managed to pop it open. Now, to very carefully clean out the iris section, I started by carefully peeling away as much of the sticker as possible, before switching to a combination of rubbing alcohol and acetone, and carefully using my craft knife and a cocktail stick to pick away at it. the sticker off. The plastic surface was badly scratched, but nothing a little UV resin couldn't fix. I made a very thin layer and cured it under the UV lamp, and it brought back the clarity beautifully. Then I just repeated this process all over again on the other eye. With both eyes free and clear, I used a little bit of white acrylic to patch up the whites of the eyes in places where the paint had chipped, as well as adding the little eye shines before filling in the pupils of the eye to each one, doing my best to make them match. After letting them dry, I mixed the colours I wanted to use and began to carefully layer and blend them as I laid down the colour on the eyes. Repeating it on the other eye and also adding a little bit of black on the top section to help it blend better with the lash line. It was definitely very strange working backwards. Normally you have to work from the bottom up, but this way you have to work from the top down, which did throw me a little as I was doing it. Once the paint was fully dry, I used a little bit of glue around the edges to attach the two pieces of the eye back together again. I used acetone to remove all of the factory paint and my Mungyo pastels to apply blush and eyeshadow. Before going in and using my pencils to add the waterline. Colour to her lips. And drawing her eyebrows. It's always so difficult to make them even. I carefully built up colour as well as finally added her eyeliner. Adding a little bit of gloss, I added it to her waterline and lip. With the face up complete, it's time to put her eyes back in, which was trickier than I thought it would be. Trying to get the lashes through the socket before the eye without crushing or damaging them was really fiddly and a real pain, but with some gentle encouragement, I got there in the end. Taking 2 small pieces of white tack, I used it to secure the eyes in place in a similar fashion to how I keep the eyes of my BJDs in place. With her eyes secured, I used a little bit of glue and reattached the circle missing from her scalp. Taking a pen, I marked out the rough outline of where I wanted the parting to be. Using hot glue to fix them in place, I took the yarn wefts I made from 2 different tones of yellow and set to work laying them down for the bangs. Once the bangs were in place, I began to lay down the wefts at the back, working my way up to the part line. With the part in place, I went around the remaining hairline before filling in the empty space with the remaining wefts. With the wefts in place, I brushed them through before starting to style her hair and cut the bangs, being very careful not to snip her lashes in the process. Originally, I had a different hairstyle in mind when I came up with the base design. However, this little one had other ideas and decided this is how she wanted her hair. Ready to see her all complete? Meet Mia. She was so much fun to work on, even though I did have a few complicated moments here and there. I think as much as I hated working with the clear PVC, it's also perfect for the overall look, so I'm glad I pushed through it and tackled it, because the result is fantastic. Especially as I couldn't resist making a stand to go with her that made it look like Mia was jumping in a puddle. I hope you all had fun along our little journey, and I hope to see you all again really soon. Until next time!